Still time. Go
Yeah.
get changed. Go get changed. Come on.
You want to go get changed, Jesse?
I'm wearing my dad's shirt. It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a sweet shirt. All right, folks, we're recording here for episode 5 of Workspace After Work. I'm your host, Troy Edwards, and I'm joined by a couple podcast peer veterans today from the Google Workspace Recap podcast, Jesse Nowlin and Steve Larsen. How we doing today, guys?
Great. Glad that we could join you finally here.
Yeah, it's
having us.
We're long overdue. We were supposed to record this last week, but I got taken down by the sickness that is floating around my wife's school and the Toronto District School Board right now. But I'm glad that we could get this done.
Jesse, last week was your birthday, actually, so happy birthday.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, we totally forgot to mention it on the Chrome OS Professional Administrator Certification live stream we did.
Yeah,
totally
I watched.
Slipped my mind.
I watched your episode this week. There was no mention of a birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. There we go. Yeah, I came and went. I worked.
There you go.
I did go out to eat the following day, though, and got the biggest meat steak, whatever, I have ever seen. It was a 32-ounce. It was the house special. It was huge. And that was after we had like 5 appetizers, which was dumb.
Nice.
I did finish
the birthday
it, though,
steak.
So. Gotta have the birthday steak, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Well, apart from your birthday, Jesse, maybe you could introduce yourself to my listeners that aren't familiar with your guys' podcast and don't know your background. Just a quick, career summary and maybe your aha moment with Google Workspace or your first time using Google Workspace, if you remember that moment. Always like to pull on that for our listeners.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Jesse Nowlin. I'm the founder of TabGeeks and creator of Workspace Recap, along with my co-host Steve Larsen here. And for me, I'll skip to the end there. The aha moment was, probably when I was in high school when Gmail launched. And I was one of the early adopters there. Yeah, I figured that would get you, Steve. I was one of the early adopters there and started using it. And then not that much older, but still. No. Had my mind blown by Google Docs when they started rolling those out. I have a whole article lamenting the loss of Google Wave because I thought that was revolutionary and totally the future. I continued rolling with it then. I still have my original account from back then and continued focusing on Google Workspace. And when I started working at my day job 7 years ago, almost 8 years ago now, they were running Exchange 2003, and this was 2014, and they were hand filtering spam, and it was like all the computers were old. It was awful. And so the first thing I did was move everybody over to what at the time Google Apps for Work. And it was really an organic growth because I started with just Gmail. In fact, I didn't even tell everybody it was Gmail. I let them continue using it in Outlook and just kind of let people learn over time, started seeding it out to people in 2014. Oh, hey, by the way, this is actually Gmail. And the ones that lit up and went, ooh, it's Gmail. Can I use it in Gmail? I was like, you're part of my advanced team. And so we started building it out that way. And then they wanted Docs, and then they wanted Sheets, and they wanted Drive, and so on. And that was kind of the organic growth there. And that was part of my journey on really focusing on Workspace and becoming an expert on Workspace. Over on the TabGeeks side, about 4 years ago, my wife and I started TabGeeks as a conference company for IT professionals. And unfortunately, due to COVID, that was shot all to hell, and we're not doing events anymore. But during COVID, I had another podcast that I was doing that took off and had tens of thousands of downloads. And I was like, wait a minute. I kind of like doing this podcasting thing. Let's see if I can do more with it. So I started leaning heavily into content, and we can get more into this later, but I started out just on the audio side. There was no video component. I didn't even have the equipment for a video component. I had a 5-year-old MacBook Pro I was using. Couldn't have recorded, never mind edited video on that if I wanted to. And at one point, I was driving down the road towards the end of the year, December, or was it 2 years ago now, Steve? And I was thinking to myself, there's so much going on because of COVID that's rolling out. All of the updates to Google Workspace, I can't keep up. I wish there was like a show I could watch or something, or a blog that would cover the updates. And then I was like, maybe I should do it. And I reached out to Steve, and over 100 episodes in a row here every single week. The rest is history.
Yeah, an impressive run. And I think a large part of our conversation today will be around that project and what that's been like, because obviously that's our common ground, being content creators in the Google Workspace universe.
Yeah, for sure.
So
one of the hardest
really...
things about that is making any money on it, which is why I started doing consulting as well. Because like we've done so many episodes here, and I've gotten a couple of sponsorships here and there, and I've got the contracts in place to to support it and whatnot. And sponsorships are always welcome, but it takes so long to get noticed, and it takes so long to build up traction. And yes, we have an extremely laser focused core audience of admins that are admitting probably close to several 100,000 or in the millions of users at this point total, but it's still only 500 listeners on the regular. And it's like, how do we get it bigger? How do we get it more out there? So, it's growing, but it takes time. And some of the biggest shows out there, especially on YouTube that you see, they've been at it 10 years before they actually started gaining real traction. So, patience, young Padawan.
Yeah, definitely. And, of course, your other half in that project, Steve, same thing to you, aha moment with Workspace, a little background about yourself, just introduce yourself to I guess my listeners.
Sure. So I've been involved in technology ever since I was a kid. Started off on Microsoft, of course, as everyone most everyone has. I think my kids haven't, of course, but those days kind of evolved into working in some startups. I was in London at the time and happened to be on Google Apps and was running kind of the business operations and IT side of things there, and just happened to be at the same time as the Google Meet hardware was just getting released, and the classic kind of like turtle shell Samsung devices that they were releasing. I was lucky enough to be contacted by a Google rep. The Google rep actually to this day still works at Google. I just talked to him last week. He's in London, and still working there. I still know him. He was, he's like freshman or, whatever year out of college or whatever, something like that, interning at Google, and reached out to me, and he's still working at Google. And that's kind of how I got involved with Google and the kind of the Cloud Connect community at the time there. Did some presentation for Google to talk about how our organization was using Google Workspace, the now Google Workspace at the time, and how it was working for our organization. So got connected to a lot of Googlers there, and just got more involved in those kind of alpha releases with products, and that kind of just rolled into the next company and position I was at, and just kind of built from there, and I've kind of stuck with it ever since. Worked for Cloud Partner, Google Cloud Partner here in Chicago for a while, and I've just always been working on the Google platform for everything for the most part, and moved from AWS onto GCP as well for the infrastructure side of things. And I've probably got to schedule my Cloud Architect recertification pretty soon here. It'll be the third time I've had to take it, so it'll be the fifth year or something like that. I'll be doing that, which seems like ages now for that one.
For you.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I did that once, and I don't have any intention on recertifying for my Cloud Architect certification on the GCP side. That felt like I was back in university studying for that thing for 4 months. Yeah, it was, and like for myself, my role day to day is as a sales guy. I'm not a technical resource, technical person with any sort of background in my career, right? So to take that exam on and that certification was quite a hill to climb, but yeah, good for you, man. I applaud that you've stuck with it and specialized in this world, and I love hearing stories like this where both of you sort of found this opportunity in your career and in specializing in something and have centered the rest of your career around it and have continued to work on that one thing. That's where I'm at right now. Obviously, only specializing in Google Workspace because I started a podcast about it, a YouTube show about it, and then got myself roped into this whole world.
And there's not many people that have been stayed focused on it for any number of years. So, it's been around for a long time, but the number of people that have been on Workspace, just on Workspace for let's say 3 or 4 years is few and far between. A lot of people they move on and they evolve into the cloud GCP side of things, infrastructure, into more broader higher revenue generating areas, might I say. So there's not many of us, which I think will be more and more valuable over time, of course.
Yeah,
I think that's going to
feel
continue.
Go ahead, Jesse. Sorry.
I was going to say, as I was arguing in our Chrome OS certification show, Workspace is kind of like the entry drug to GCP, and I've continuously been shocked at the massive amount of investment and marketing that is behind GCP and getting people on there, but then they don't push Workspace nearly as much. And so many small to medium-sized businesses, especially now thanks to COVID, are coming online and are realizing, oh crap, we have to get rid of our old legacy ancient architecture, or hey, we need a real solution to be able to do this. And they're all moving to Workspace. I won't say every single one of them, but a significant amount of them, especially in that area. And when they grow to the point where they're going to start needing some compute or cloud or whatnot, they're going to go directly into GCP just like we did.
Yeah, and I mean, even StrataPrime, where I work, was a Workspace first partner, and that's our core competency. But we can't ignore the onslaught of GCP and the interest in GCP from our customer base, and every new customer or prospect that we talk to in terms of Workspace is the start of the conversation, but that GCP piece is certainly Google signifies to us that they want it to be a big part of the conversation as well, obviously with the sales and marketing effort and budget that you alluded to. I do have a lot to thank you guys for, on a personal note, because you invited my previous co-host Rowan onto your show as a guest.
It's one of the first guests I think that we had, wasn't it?
An early one.
Yeah, and that was early days. I think you mentioned a 2-year timeline of the show being in production back to December of, I guess that would be 2020. And
episode 6 he was on.
Yeah, there you go, episode 6. So I listened to that episode and I thought, geez, this Rowan guy that I work with is pretty smart. I better see if I can produce something with him, or see if he's open to producing a podcast or something of our own at SADA at the time. And that's all because I heard him on your guys' show. So thanks so much for helping me get my start in this side of the business.
So was the show
awesome.
Your idea then to kind of create that there at SADA? Or where did that kind of come from?
Yeah, so Rowan and I were hanging out. He was new to Toronto, new to Canada, and didn't know that many people. And we just happened to live really close to each other here in Toronto. And we're on the same team at work. So we got hanging out, having a couple beers on a Friday night, and chatting about his guest appearance on your show and what I thought of it, and thought that he sounded really, he sounded on point in the episode that I listened to. So started exploring ideas for. I always had an interest in podcasting and YouTube content and that sort of thing. I'm a YouTube junkie. I subscribe to a lot of channels on YouTube and consume that as my probably my main content source at this point. So I was interested in the production side of things and what the back end of going into production would be. So we started from there, and then it was kind of our shared idea, I would say, Steve.
Okay.
To start, I won't claim idea generation on that one.
Yeah, in our case, Jesse was definitely the spearhead in it all. Obviously, him having the podcast already was his previous one, but for me, it was a complete unexpected avenue that I never expected or wanted to really get into, and surprised that I've been doing it for this long every single week. So it's been a good experience. Welcome.
You were already doing it everywhere else, just in written content. You were on every Slack, every forum.
Right.
You were on it. I was like, who is this Steve guy?
Yeah.
We've touched base back and forth over the years, but and as we've said on our show a bunch of times, we've never met in person.
Still haven't.
Ever.
Still haven't. Have not.
No,
well,
never.
We
I've
were
never
probably
met
in the
person.
same room at Google. What was it? The Google Workspace
in Mountain View, Googleplex
for work, right?
Conference.
Google Labs for Work meetup. That's what they used to call them back in 2016. But we've never actually met in person, and this has all been totally remote. But I want to thank you for saying that, Troy, because one of the things about being a content creator, especially in podcasts and YouTube, is that people don't really tell us all that much when they love our show or whatnot. And so hearing such an impactful story from, something that was even all the way back then is just an amazing thing to hear. And it helps to keep us going.
Yeah, not a problem. And I do try and comment and and, push the algorithm as much as I can to help you guys grow. That's really like the core idea behind this show is, I don't mind having people on from other competing partners. I don't mind having people on from Google or customers or, the content side like you guys. I think all boats rise with the tide, and the more that we can grow this industry, the better for everyone. So,
I literally just quoted that in the last episode.
Did you?
Didn't I, Steve?
Yes.
Didn't I just say that?
Yes.
I was
yes.
like, I gotta put that on a plaque.
You know what?
That's one of my favorites.
2 days, 48 hours ago is the exact words that Jesse. Listen to the episode once it comes out. Did you release it?
I did listen to it. I did listen to it.
Okay. Oh, maybe that's what. Just like, seed was planted there. I heard it. That's where you heard it.
So you guys kind of covered it. So Jesse, did you just see Steve popping up in forums on the internet? How did you guys meet originally? If you've never met in person,
Slacks and forums and everywhere that I went that I was consuming and networking with people and seeing people asking questions and answering questions. Steve was always there. It was like, who is this? Steve Larsen, and sometimes it was the little acorn emoji that he's got. Sometimes it was a little Google logo on there. It was always Steve Larsen, Steve Larsen. Who's Steve Larsen? And
you invited me. You invited me to one of
Yeah.
your conferences out in California when I was working in London, and I
was probably first
wanted to come out there. Yeah, that was one of the first times you reached out, and I think it was because we were active at that meetup in California. And you were just following up with people, I think, that were attended, and that's kind of when we, first started speaking.
And then I invited him to go on my other show, which at the time was called Supporting IT Support. It's now called Heroes of IT, and I really have to get back to recording those. So coming soon, everybody, go and subscribe. But I wanted to
put
test
links in the
Steve
description
because,
for all of your different projects
down below. I had seen him written everywhere, but I had never actually talked to the guy. So I was like, come on my show. Let's see how you do. And then shortly after that, I was like, hey, we meshed well. How do you feel about doing a show together? And here we are.
Yeah, and on your show, for those who haven't seen it or listened to it before, you pretty much weekly summarize all of the various updates that have come to Google Workspace over the last week. And as most of my listeners would know, there's been a plethora to cover. Interested how that's gone week to week in terms of like, how do you decide what to spotlight? How do you decide how to which order to present them in? Curious to see behind the curtain a little bit in terms of how you guys plan for your episodes when those updates come out.
I can take that. I'm really lazy, and I wanted to. I have 2 kids, and wanted to do as minimal prep work, as minimal production work as possible to get this off the ground. I already had the other show. I was doing consulting as well through TabGeeks, and I also had a day job at working full time. And so it was like, all right, I want to get this out there, but I got to do it in a way that it's not going to take 18 hours a week to do. And so I was looking through the updates blog, and I was like, geez, Google writes the show for me every week. Perfect. And so that's basically what we did. We started with just the updates and just reading through them. And it became expanded a little bit into, all right, let's talk about a little bit of this. And, everything that I've done with TabGeeks in terms of different shows and different content has been about sharing experience and knowledge. And there's so much in this industry that is just, not everyone, but so many people are gatekeepers and things are just locked away. And, like you said, the rising tide, I wanted that effect for everything that we're doing with our content on TabGeeks. And so when we started going into this, I all right, Steve has a crap load of experience, especially with larger orgs. I'm more on the small to medium-sized business, and I've worked more in Workspace and Chromeboxes and things like that, as well as everything else IT, because I was an IT manager at the time. And let's combine that, and let's see what we can add to here for contextual awareness and thoughts about the individual updates. And then we started adding in some news because we realized, hey, it's relevant when something happens on Android or on Chrome or Chrome OS or a major Google development or Area 120, rest in peace, rest in pieces, theoretically. And it's just kind of grown from there. And as the years have gone by here, this is now year 3 of the show, started experimenting more as I got more time, and I actually took a step back from my day job to focus on building TabGeeks about a year ago, and that's where the video component came in. It was like, all right, I'm now going to have this time. I bought a brand new MacBook Pro, 14-inch with the M1 Pro processor. Now I can do video, and
there you go.
started buying actual studio tech, and as we were talking about before the show, renovated my garage into a proper home office and a studio, and that's where I'm sitting now, and where the magic happens, and the show just kind of gradually grew throughout time as Steve and I had more time and effort and energy to put into it. And now even the videos that I'm doing, it takes me probably about 4 or 5 hours to edit each episode after we've done the recording. Recording is usually an hour and a half or so because Steve and I like to schmooze a while before we actually hit record.
A lot more than we did today, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry,
yeah. And a lot more than we
business.
used to also.
All business on Workspace After Work here, guys.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of which, I haven't joined you guys at all with the drinks, so cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, we're sipping on whiskey in Steve's honor today.
Yeah, so that's kind of where the format for the show originated and how it has evolved over the years, a little bit with how much bandwidth I had to put into it, and also with kind of the feedback that we were getting from folks. I realized just from talking to some people that were watching the show and from some of the metrics that I was seeing that a lot of people were watching it on big screen TV. So I was like, hey, we got to actually put up some information on screen here so that people can see what this looks like. And as we leaned more into the YouTube side, not just the podcast side, having more YouTube-style elements that helps, keep the pace and keep people interested. And so that's what I've been working on lately.
And we started the video parts, the very first episode of season 2, right? So we've been doing that for over a year now.
And then I cranked up the editing for episode 1 of season 3. So every year it's been kind of like, all right, how are we going to crank this up another notch, and then kind of refine that as the year goes on, and then take it up to the next level. And one of these days we're going to make it to Google Next in person and start doing some live interviews. But that's the goal.
One of these days is in about 6 months from now, I hope.
Fingers crossed. I just had twins, so I'm not going anywhere right now. As you can
you're-
see, I forgot I'm wearing my dad's shirt. This has literally a kangaroo pocket to hold babies because my nanny is out sick today, and so I was holding one of the babies while I was editing earlier. It's all consuming. Like everything that I'm doing is happening outside of the twins. So hopefully things will be stable enough, and I'll be able to make the jump out and leave my wife at home with the twins and my 2 older kids for 3 days. But we'll have to see based on. I have a pretty awesome nanny that we're really happy with. So hopefully we'll be able to have her come, some more hours and help out around the house and stuff. So I'm not just leaving my wife stranded with 4 kids, newborn twins, etc.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm planning on just grabbing an Airbnb, like a house for the week down there, and working from there. And maybe we can chat about it if you get out of if you get out of there, Jesse. Maybe we can do a content house for Google Cloud Next.
So
that would be interesting.
Here's my suggestion for that, because I thought about that type of a setup, I think, the other year when I was going to go out there with a bunch of people. The thing that you really want to be nearby is the conference center. And there's not much around there other than hotels.
And San Francisco traffic is awful, especially with a conference that big.
So the best thing to do is to get like a hotel suite or connected rooms.
Book it now.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I did. I booked it as soon as it was announced and had, 4 rooms together. And you can make it fancier and get suites to have, like bigger space. Like you have 1 suite and a couple smaller rooms. But that along those lines, definitely that's what we should do for sure. Announcing
the Workspace Recap and After Work, After Dark Rager at Next at our suite.
Content collabs coming out the wazoo.
Sponsors, let me know if you'd like to get in on this.
We should need to start doing that. I think we can make that happen for sure.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely have. There's going to be some planning to come over the next little while in terms of what we can produce in person, and that's a new world that for all of us to tackle. Considering you guys have never met in person before, I would think that would be a pretty exciting portion of that. But there you go. Yeah, Jesse's got his handheld mic ready to go.
My Rode wireless. We're in business.
I did want to circle back to a couple of things that you mentioned there, Jesse, in terms of you guys getting started up in your journey through growing the podcast over the last couple of years. You mentioned the Google Workspace Updates blog. One thing that I thought was funny out of the last episode that you guys did was talking about that the update for Sheets that was a side-by-side comparison. It was an image comparison, and it was almost like a find the difference game. Like this, it was like what has changed? And you mentioned in the episode, you're like, I think you said GIF, but I'll say GIF would be better suited to have shown this update. In terms of like interacting with that blog, I would say you guys are probably up there in terms of individuals who have spent the most time reading through those updates. Any like advice for listeners who are subscribing to the blog or maybe have installed the chat bot into Google Chat to get those updates pushed out to them? Any like advice to them in combing through those updates for the nuggets of wisdom?
Yes, subscribe to Workspace Recap.
Oh, there you go. Obvious one. That's an obvious one.
Go ahead, Steve. I'll let you take this one.
No, that was kind of the same thing I was going to say. But I think we've been reading those posts for years now, and noticing all these little nuances to them as they get released and posted, and subtle differences over the years of how they've kind of changed and evolved and gotten a little bit better, a bit more information on what's coming out, things like that. So it's definitely a good source, kind of the most concise source, I would say, to know what's happening, what's being released and when. And for others that have access to some of the visible changes docs and some of the early release products, that's another very good resource. Those two together, to get your kind of time or time spent looking at those things are probably the best things to look at there.
Best resources to start with.
I
would say and go ahead, Steve. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, just in the calendar. The calendar too. I think that's probably one thing that's missed a lot. Is getting the different feeds added into your calendar so you can see those. So if you don't have time to go and actively kind of go out and check those posts and kind of see them in your calendar there as they're coming up. So that's I guess the next best thing, or the least amount of time and effort is to subscribe to those calendar feeds.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and of course to subscribe to the Google Workspace Recap podcast as well, wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And while you're at it, before you go there, make sure you hit subscribe to Workspace After Work as well. And go follow StrataPrime on LinkedIn, because, I got to give a shout out. I just did on LinkedIn today.
Oh, yeah, I saw that today.
Cindy Lee King at StrataPrime in our marketing department does such a fantastic job of concisely summarizing the updates in posts on our LinkedIn page for StrataPrime. I think that's like a sign of how we sort of position ourselves as a partner. We're like value first. We like to lead with value, and we do those summaries for free for all of our LinkedIn followers, summarizing those updates as much as we can. For the longer form, contextual review of those updates, you want to follow Jesse and Steve. And I would say I'd really appreciate, as a listener of your podcast, that you guys are evangelists of Google Workspace, but you're also realists of technology.
We throw it down.
Almost pessimists at some point, Steve. I'm going to call you out specifically.
Yeah.
Almost pessimist level.
I agree. I wouldn't dispute that.
Yeah, but I think that's
should we
healthy,
talk about
right?
Steve's favorite feature that's launching this week?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, well, I did want to pivot the conversation to favorite features, favorite updates. Obviously, you guys are well aware of everything that's happened over the last couple of years. Is there anything that stands out to you in 2023? Maybe a little bit older, good or bad? Steve, I'm looking at you.
Yeah, the changes to spaces is what I'm dreading. This, this new inline threading that's going to be starting like in 11 days, March 13th. And then the worst part of that announcement was that later this year, existing spaces organized by conversation topic is going to be migrated to the new inline threaded experience. And that's, this happens all the time with Google. They're always limiting choice in terms of the product and what we can do. And that's one of the things that I wish would maybe take a little bit more prominence, is that ability to make that choice between different ways to use the product, rather than, you know, just having that one solution that Google thought and thinks is the best way, right? And you know, obviously I've started using some of the you know, the spaces with the new inline threading, and it's a horrible experience for me. It's not, I don't know, it's just not as straightforward. It's not as, I don't know, the information just doesn't just flow as easily. And when you're talking about organizing the world's information as being your number one priority here, this just doesn't align with that goal, in my view. You know, it's like making it harder to organize information by making this change, and it's just trying to get, you know, feature parity with, you know, Slack, and it's
100%.
just, it's not. The differentiator was how they were doing it with the topics, and that's what made it great, and that's why I liked it. And you know, I'm joking with some other people that also don't like it. Like, let's just go to Slack instead, because like it's, you know, there's more ways to kind of you know, monitor different threads with Slack than there are with Spaces, and like to see when, you know, new things are happening there. And you know, it's like now it's just this, it's the same but worse now with Slack, in my view.
Yeah, it's been interesting because the inline threading has been a choice for a little while now for users to implement when they're creating a space or not, right? I would be interested to see what the data is on uptake of that feature when they rolled it out, because as an option, because now that it's becoming the default, and it's a forced transition to this feature. It doesn't feel as, it feels too prescriptive. I agree with you in that sense. And I know that they're trying to compete with Slack and trying to enrich the feature set of chat and Spaces to up-level it to be able to consolidate Slack in certain customers that they have. But yeah, I'm with you. It doesn't feel as open as it should.
It's a weird balance there. Something that you sort of touched upon there, Steve, is that, you know, Google likes to do this where they like to limit things, but Google's an engineering organization. They're focused, like, you know, they are, take the chat strategy, for example. Let's have 8 different ways to do chat and see which one works the best, and then kill the others. Like, they like trying things, they like testing things, but on the flip side of that, they've also locked down a lot of the stuff so that, I mean, the feature set is massive, but you look at it against some of the new startups or the more modern, you know, workspace, you know, type tools these days, and they're all about the exact opposite. Is we're going to let you do everything all at once, which is great for some people, great for engineers. Notion, you need a frickin' degree to use it almost, because it's most powerful when you're a keyboard warrior and your keyboard shortcuts and your shortcuts and whatnot. And even ClickUp this week just announced that they have their own workspace where they want you to do all of your work inside of ClickUp. And, you know, that's kind of my favorite thing that came out of 2022 and now into 2023 is that single workspace for everything. And I love the direction that they're going in that. But to Steve's point, keep going. They're just like, they're holding themselves back. And I don't know if it's the threat of antitrust or if it's, you know, something else going on or different leadership changes and styles. You know, Javier Soltero did a phenomenal job at getting us to that point and getting us over that, you know, the threshold of beginning this transformation. And now he has left the company, and we don't really, you know necessarily the where it's going to go from here. We have ideas, but with Javier, you kind of, you know, it was pretty clear what was going on there. And you know, it's for an organization that prides itself and values so much experimentation and testing and allowing for people of a similar mindset to use their tools when it comes to the Workspace suite of products. They're trying to be much more Apple-y, but it's almost as if they don't know how to be Apple-y.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I've been in the partner ecosystem and working with Google Cloud for a couple of years now, and you know, the comment that gets thrown around the most seems to be that Google is the biggest startup that there is. Like they just are unpredictable sometimes with the decisions that they make, and I mean it's a giant machine that's trying to stay nimble, trying to stay agile.
Elements, yeah,
exactly, yeah. Listen, guys. I kind of try and keep my episodes to 30 minutes, and we're a little bit
us off.
over already. I think there's lots more to uncover, lots more to chat about, and I would love to have you guys on as regular recurring guests to come back and talk about the updates that you've been covering on your show. And our shows are very different, so I think listeners can benefit from subscribing to both, and for different reasons. But if you're in the workspace universe, if you're in the ecosystem, at a partner at Google or at a customer as an admin of Google Workspace, got to recommend following these guys on LinkedIn and subscribing to their podcast. And if you've found value in today's episode and conversation of Workspace After Work, please hit subscribe or follow, depending on what platform you're on. Jesse, Steve, cheers, guys. Thanks again for joining me on the show. We'll see you, on another episode soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
And whether you're on the podcast side, Workspace Recap or Google Workspace Recap on all the major platforms, YouTube, it's at TabGeeks, and WorkspaceRecap.com is our website and has all the other information on it. Thanks for listening.
There you go. Links in the description below on YouTube as well. Thanks. We'll see you soon.
Bye, all.